Would you like to cool your emotions after a breakup, calm down, and return to everyday life? A breakup is one of the most challenging experiences a person can experience. And yet, breakups happen all the time to many people worldwide. And since it happened to you as well, it's a good idea to make the most of this time to learn as many lessons and benefits from the event as possible for the future. Catching that kind of emotional slack after a breakup is very important, whether you want to forget about your ex, or you still want to fight for that person and give yourself some chance to fight for your ex and try to get that person back. In either case, it's always a good idea to start by getting your emotions under control by getting that aforementioned emotional slack. Even if you plan to do everything you can to get your partner back, it's still worth facing this complex reality and coming to terms with the fact that you may fail. Now, it is no longer all up to you. You can do everything exactly right and have a great strategy, but something else may work out. Coming to terms with this is very important because the more intensely you make your happiness dependent on whether you get your ex back or not, the harder it will be for you to stay calm. And without that inner peace, that kind of deep confidence that you will be able to cope no matter what happens and be happy, no matter what the outcome, it will unfortunately be much harder to get your ex back. Here, the main goal is to calm your emotions, regardless of whether you succeed in getting your ex back or not. This is the first and most important step. I know that a breakup is a tough time. Some people, after a breakup, can't think about anything else, can't sleep, can't eat, and experience such tremendous mental suffering, which is not at all milder than physical suffering. However, it is worth understanding that this suffering is not due to what happened in your life or the breakup, but to your interpretation of the event. Now imagine putting 1,000 people in such a stressful situation as you often encounter, driving a car during rush hour. I'm sure you've seen road rage more than once, where some nervous driver shouts out the open window and presses nervously on the car horn. There will be those who immediately get their blood pressure up and turn on such a combative mood, but there will also be those who get scared and don't answer anything, and even those who apologize even though it wasn't their fault. Still, other people may, in such a stressful situation, remain completely calm and not respond with aggression, or become frightened despite the yelling of a stranger. They may think, "Poor man, maybe he's having a worse day, or is having a hard time in life since he has such a character that he reacts in such a way to such minor offenses, and it's so easy to upset him." Of course, such a calm attitude is the most difficult to achieve, yet this kind of complete calmness allows you to make the best possible decision about how to behave. With complete composure and a smile, you can say, "Excuse me, but why get so upset? We are all in the same traffic jam, and shouting won't ease the traffic jam." In this way, such a nervous driver can be calmed down, as he did not expect such a reaction and knows that further shouting is pointless. It's easy in such a situation to feel like you're the one doing something wrong when someone attacks you or yells at you in such a vulgar way that you may feel like you're dumber or worse. Meanwhile, how other people treat us is primarily a testament to them, not to us. Understanding what others think of us and how they react to us makes a huge difference. The fact that your ex broke up with you says more about him than about you. And the same is precisely accurate for a breakup. It's easy to fall into the trap of such fatal beliefs, which will lead you to constant sadness and even depression. Challenging these beliefs will help you regain peace of mind and look at yourself more kindly. Similarly, in the case of a breakup, put 1,000 people in the same situation as yours, and everyone will react differently. Because the situation you find yourself in does not define how you must feel. There will be those who will break down and take several months to recover, wallowing in these depressive thoughts. There will be those who will even jump from love to hatred, and suddenly, the partner from such a loved one will become public enemy number one and an object of hate. But there may also be individuals who will say to themselves and their partner, "Okay, I love you, I want to be with you, but if you don't want it, I understand. I wouldn't want you to be with me just because I want it if you don't want it yourself. I let you go and will always wish you the best." This attitude is mighty and also very attractive. This is the attitude of anti-desperation. Now let's see what beliefs can contribute to all these unpleasant emotions, and face these beliefs one by one. If you love your partner and have just heard that this is the end of your relationship, it is only natural to feel that you are losing something valuable. In such a situation, our perspective changes, and we tend to idealize our partner. Suddenly, all your partner's flaws disappear in your eyes, which you saw before and probably bothered you to some extent. Now we put them aside and see primarily the advantages that will be difficult to find in any other person. Unfortunately, you won't do anything about this sense of loss by force, so don't try to fight it. It will simply pass on its own when you overcome false beliefs. Be aware that in such a moment, you have a particular illusion in front of your eyes. That romantic image of your partner you see now has nothing to do with reality. If you want to be closer to the truth, then remind yourself of the last time you were pissed off at your partner, and at that time you mainly saw his flaws. There may have been a moment when you considered breaking up with your partner. Recall what it was like then. Neither of these images is accurate. Neither the one now when you idealize him or when you were close to a breakup, but you will be closer to the truth when you confront these two visions of your ex. Over the past week, millions worldwide have been in the same situation. They now think that only this one person can give them happiness, and without this one person, they cannot be happy. Of course, these millions are not just thinking about the same person. They are thinking about millions of others who have decided to end their relationship. A person ending a relationship does not become an ideal, it is an illusion. The same was probably true in your case. Now, you may think that you won't be happy without this person, yet in a few years, your emotional state will be completely different when you look back to the moment you are in now. You will be able to approach the situation with a completely different attitude. Then, you may even feel grateful that something like this happened. So, if you want to experience this effect even more strongly, then remind yourself of the most challenging experiences you have had in your life so far. Think of something difficult in your life that happened a minimum of a year ago. It's been a while since that event, and you can see for yourself that being in that situation, it was undoubtedly much more complex than from the perspective from which you look at it now. Back then, you may also have believed that you would be unhappy, yet your emotions changed, and you were able to find your happiness despite such a challenging event. This is an excellent exercise, so I encourage you to pause now and think about the problematic event, how you perceived your future when it happened, and how you perceive it now in retrospect. You are realizing that what you are feeling now is an illusion, and the result of chemical reactions in your brain will not suddenly make you stop feeling any loss altogether. It's about realizing that you will be happy again sooner or later without this person. This is one of the many bricks that will allow you to feel great relief because the feeling of happiness is unconditional. You don't have to have arms or legs. You don't have to have a healthy spine to be happy. You don't even have to have a new car or a fancy house to allow yourself to be happy. Happiness is our natural state, which is our default state. What is unhappiness? This sense of being unhappy occurs when we decide for ourselves that without something or without some person, we cannot be happy. This belief in the illusion makes us give up this happiness. So allow yourself to be happy, even by ending the relationship. Undoubtedly, the moment of separation is such a time to learn from what happened. It's rarely the case that you didn't make any mistakes, and your relationship fell apart entirely without reason. Yes, this can happen, for example, when your partner previously abandoned his ex, and now this person, for whom your ex still has feelings all the time, has started to speak to your very partner with whom you split up. In such a situation, even if you didn't make any mistakes, you could still be highly unlucky because your ex's old feelings were more substantial than those that started to arise towards you. The only thing left to do in such a situation is to get over it and move on with your life. Because the person your ex used to be with had much stronger feelings developed over the years, which gives him an advantage over you, and nothing can be done about it. However, in most situations, you directly impacted the breakup and probably made many mistakes, so it's worth learning lessons and finding out what those mistakes were. Consider what you can do better so that you don't make those mistakes again in a new relationship or with your ex when you manage to rebuild the ties anew and get that ex back. On the other hand, after a breakup, it's easy to believe thoughts like, "I suck." Thus, you will start to lower your self-esteem, making it more difficult to win back your ex or find a new partner. Therefore, one important relationship is worth distinguishing. Even if you have actually made a lot of mistakes up to now and you were undeniably the one who led to this breakup, it still doesn't mean that in the future, the situation will repeat itself, that you suck, and already every relationship you have will look the same. There is nothing you can do about it. Making mistakes in every sphere of our lives is an inevitable feature of human nature. All people make mistakes. There are no perfect people, even if they create themselves anyway on Instagram, Facebook, or some other social media. When we closely examine their lives, this is different, and everyone makes these mistakes. However, another characteristic of human nature is that we learn and change. Just because some of your behaviors have led to a breakup now doesn't mean you are doomed to the same behaviors in the future. Such a belief that your personality is fixed and there is nothing you can do about it is known as a fixed mindset. People with this belief can easily fall into such learned helplessness. Untrue thinking creeps in that since something like this happened once, it will always be like this, and I am doomed to fail. On the other hand, people who believe that their personality is a matter of constant work on themselves, and they can change, have what is called a growth mindset. I don't need to convince you that believing you can change and work on yourself is better. Growth mindset is much more beneficial, and of course, this significantly impacts your self-esteem. Your personality is indeed not fixed. Throughout a lifetime, people can undergo huge metamorphoses. However, the foundation and first step in this direction is always believing that you are capable of this change, even at such a deep level. If, on the occasion of a breakup, you attach to yourself a patch like this, "I'm hopeless and unreformable," that's a powerful stone you're tying around your neck, and there's not much you can do about it. On the other hand, if you calmly begin to analyze your mistakes in order not to make them in the future, you will probably be able to change a lot and avoid those mistakes later. After a breakup, it is easy to believe that you have suffered such a massive failure in your life, and now you will never recover from it. This is a very destructive belief worth doing something about, so let me tell you a story that I found compelling in changing beliefs in my life. Once upon a time, in a medieval village, a poor farmer worked in the fields every day with his son. Once upon a time, wild horses appeared near this farmer's house. This farmer's son caught one of these horses, which was quite a treasure in such a medieval farm because it would have made their work in the field much more accessible. That's why when people in the village heard about it, they all said, "Farmer, but you're lucky. Now it will be much easier for you to work in the field." And the farmer modestly replied, "Maybe luck, maybe bad luck. We'll see." A few days later, when this farmer's son tried to ride this captured horse, he fell off the saddle and broke his leg. Then the people in the village said again, "Oh, farmer, you are unlucky after all. Your son has now broken his leg. How will you harvest now?" The humble peasant answers again, "Maybe luck, maybe bad luck. We'll see." A few weeks later, through the village where the peasant and his son lived, the army came and forcibly recruited all the young men who were capable of fighting. But because the peasant's son was still healing his broken leg, they did not take him into the army. He stayed with his father and was able to continue to help him. Again, people in the village said, "Farmer, you are lucky after all. Your son was not taken to the army. You will still have someone to help you." But the farmer still said, "Maybe luck, maybe bad luck. We'll see. If you have just separated, have children and a house with your partner, then from this perspective, you may feel that you are losing your life. Yet we can only ever connect the dots backwards. And from this perspective, it will be difficult for you to judge whether divorce is as terrible a thing as you think it is now. When you look back on it, you will recognize that it was an excellent step and that you were lucky that it happened, even if it is tough for you now. I encourage you to look back again to some unpleasant event in your life that troubled you greatly. And yet now, when you look back on it, you even feel grateful that you nevertheless experienced the hardships that befell you at the time. Many people mention at this point just the termination of a relationship in the past. They used to regret it very much. It was a tragedy that they couldn't recover from, and now, after a few years, in hindsight, they recognize that it was one of the best things that could have happened to them because they knew that it had to end, so they are glad that it ended right then. Whether you were a failure or not is just a matter of judgment. If you approach the event with an "I lost my life" attitude, or "this is a reason to be ashamed," then unfortunately, you will suffer. However, you can change your perspective. It's a good idea not to evaluate what's happening in your life from the perspective of victory or defeat, because both have their dark sides. It will work much better for your peace of mind to set your sights on an incredible journey instead of getting there. Now, imagine riding a motorcycle from Dublin to Rome to see the Colosseum. It's the kind of crazy adventure you've always dreamed of, by motorcycle through the Alps. The one-way trip takes you a couple of days. Along the way, you see all sorts of beautiful landscapes, stop at many interesting places, and visit the Colosseum in only a few hours. What do you think will be more important to you? how incredible the Colosseum was, or how the trip went and what happened along the way. Where did you sleep? What did you eat? What did you see? What kind of people did you meet? How did you experience the entire trip? If even the Colosseum turned out to be overrated and uninteresting to you in general, would you consider the whole trip a failure if the expedition was great? The result only matters a little here if we enjoy the trip. On the other hand, we live in a society that tends to judge us regarding the final result. You don't have to succumb to that. You can explain to yourself that the journey was much more important, and even if the relationship eventually fell apart, that's nothing. It was a beautiful time together, and it is yours. For some reason, many people may view a breakup or divorce as a colossal failure, but the 5 previous nightmarish years are no longer considered that way. From this perspective, divorce can be a perfect change, even if you don't look at it that way now. If you focus on the journey, the outcome won't matter much. So what if you lose something, if you've enjoyed plenty of satisfaction along the way? What about winning something if you've experienced a real ordeal along the way? The result doesn't matter, and it's the journey that counts. Contrary to what you may think, it only matters a little if it eventually fell apart, or not if you were happy for most of its duration. A much worse experience is a relationship in which you are not happy, and which never falls apart. That is just a tragedy. From such a situation, it's also easy to start believing that since your relationship fell apart, you wasted as many years of your life as you had in the relationship. Yet this is not true. No one will take away from you all those beautiful moments you experienced in that relationship before the breakup. Of course, you can only consider it wasted years if you want to torture yourself, not to mention that maybe not all is lost yet, and with a good strategy and a little luck, you will be able to get your partner back. It is perfectly normal to care what other people think of us. It's normal to want to be essential and to be liked and admired. And it's also perfectly normal that you might be afraid of what others will think of you when they find out your partner broke up with you. You don't know what they will think because everyone will feel something different, and it's unlikely everyone will share an array of thoughts with you. There are bound to be those who will sympathize with you and try to comfort you. The question is, how do you feel about it? Do such emotions of other people make you uncomfortable? Do you not want someone to feel sorry for you? If this is the case, where do you think it comes from? Most often, it comes from the fact that we want to be seen as strong people. Sympathy is unlikely to assume that we are strong. We are only weak now. The escape from this discomfort is to get rid of this need to be seen as someone strong who can't be hurt. The reality is that you don't need that because it's not true anyway. There is no point in creating such an image when no one believes it. People may sympathize with you on hearing that your partner broke up with you without even knowing how you really feel. You can be totally calm, and they will still sympathize with you because they assume you are suffering. Sympathy is simply an expression of human empathy, an expression that someone cares about you. There is nothing to be afraid of. If you experience compassion, accept it with gratitude. You don't have to pretend that nothing has happened, that you are tough and are unaffected if, in practice, this is not the case. Admitting that the breakup hurt you won't make you less likable or that people will suddenly turn on you. And even if it did, it might even be better. After all, you don't need the kind of friends who turn on you when you show some emotion or weakness. Those aren't friends, so it's good that something like that would come to light. At least you know who you are dealing with. Admitting that something is difficult for you has precisely the opposite effect. Admitting that you've done something wrong, that you've made a mistake, that you regret something reveals your soft side, and this doesn't arouse withdrawal on the part of people, but on the contrary, strengthens sympathy for you. There are bound to be some people who may think to themselves that you have failed in some way and are a failure. Why should you care what people think? What other people think and say to you is more about them than you. Now, let's return briefly to that traffic situation, where the nervous driver shouted at you. Indeed, this person thought nothing good about you. Is there any point in worrying about what he thought? Of course not. So, how do you stop caring? There is no point in pretending that people only think positively about you, or trying to stop thinking about what others think about you. A good exercise is to face what people might think of you in your imagination. Imagine that the thing you fear most is happening. Suppose your parent thought of you as a loser and that you would never find another partner. Now imagine you know what your parents think and don't fight it. You let him think what he wants to think for himself. You don't try in any way to change his mind about you. You imagine that you are still happy in such a situation. You accept it with peace of mind. Your parent doesn't have to change his mind even by millimeters, and you can still be happy. You accept your parent as he or she is. In practice, your parent may suffer with such a thought, but that is his problem, not yours. You are the one who can feel sorry for him that he is concerned about your breakup and has such a pessimistic vision of your future. You don't have to resent him even for a moment. You can say to yourself something like, "I feel sorry for you for thinking to yourself in this way. It must be stressful. I'm worried, but I hope you'll be happy." People will always form opinions about others. They will say and think what they want, and you have no control over it. The more you fight it, the worse it is for you. The key to freedom is to stop fighting further. Suddenly, you will discover that nothing changes whether you fight or not. People think, say, and sometimes do what they want anyway. The only thing that changes is you. As a result, you stop being a frightened puppet who wants to change other people's thinking at all costs, create your ideal image in other people's eyes, and don't want to let other people think anything wrong about him. Instead, you do what you think is right and what is in your interest, rather than trying to seek just that acceptance and recognition. Paradoxically, the less you care about other people's opinions, the better these people will think of you. But this is only a side effect, not the goal. I invite you to the next section. If you liked the material, leave a like and send it to a friend or someone close to you who may benefit from this knowledge. If you want to support our work and help us create more valuable videos, there is a link in the description.